So, dear colleagues, today we will have the second lecture from the psychiatry, and it will be regarding the disorders of thinking. It will be about the intellectual disorders, disorders of emotional relational sphere, appetencies, and we'll talk about quite a big part of psychiatric topics. First of all, let's start from the thing, what is thinking? Thinking, it refers to the consciousness cognitive processes that can happen independently of sensory stimulants. When we will try to understand this process from the wider sense, any mental event, it can be understood as a form of thinking. Speaking about the memory and imagination, they are forms of thinking, but perception is not this part of thinking. Thinking, it is the higher form of the reflection of the objective reality, a process of generalized and mediated reflection of objects and events of the material world in their cultural connections and relations. Speaking about this main understanding of thinking, we can say that it's quite a big process, and it's a process that helps us to do a lot of things inside of our brain. It helps us to create new things. It helps us to make conclusions. It helps us to make exceptions and other things. We know that every person have its own periods that refer to the thinking formation. First of all, we know that people have visual thinking. It's the most elementary kind of thinking that is based on the direct perception of objects in the action with them. What does it mean? It means that we take something and we are making some specific manipulation with this object, and we understand that this object can do such role. For example, if I take a bottle of water, I understand that this way we can drink the water. Visual, creative thinking is the kind of thinking that is characterized by the reliance on perceptions and images. With the visual figurative thinking in terms of the simulation, transformed image or representation. It means that we can try to make new things with it. For example, if I understand that I want to make something new, I can try to make specific features with the object. For example, if I need to put something higher, I can put it, for example, on my bottle, and this object will be much higher on the bottle. Figurative or verbal logical thinking, the kind of thinking that's implementing using the logical operations with concepts. When the verbal and the logical thinking in terms of logical concepts, the subject can learn significant patterns and relationships on observable reality studies. What does it mean? It means that we can say that the bottle is a specific object that have such specific form and can be used in specific manner or specific way. Yeah, bottle is typical thing in which we can put the liquid thing. Sometimes we can put not liquid but like soft things. Yeah, and we understand that bottle is such a figure. Yeah, if we say the word bottle, we imagine some specific kind of object. Conceptual or abstract logical thinking, the kind of thinking that is based on the allocation of potential properties and relations abstracted from the objects and the other, and which are irrelevant. What does it mean? It means that in our mind, we can imagine specific things, we can imagine specific behaviors that can help us to organize things specific way. Specific way, it means that in our brain we can make specific plans, and we can realize them inside of our brain, which help us to prognose the future reality. We know that there are a lot of thinking operations. It means specific things that are typically present in every person which have normal type of thinking. The person in which the thinking is not disorganized. It's analysis, synthesis, it's generalization, concretization, abstraction, classification, inclusion, exclusion, and conception thinking. Speaking about these processes, we know that all of them are present in this or that situation. For example, if we are analyzing something, we are trying to understand the main features of some specific phenomena. Synthesis helps us to make one big conclusion that is based on the smaller things. For example, due to this type of thinking, we can complete the puzzle making, the picture, for example, from the puzzles. Generalization, due to this process, we can understand that there are specific features that are typically present not in the same or this one object, but it can be spread to different objects and phenomena. For example, we know that all the metals, they can through them it can go the electricity. It means if the gold is metal, it leads to the conclusion that, or generalization, that the gold can through the gold the electrical activity can go. Yeah, the concretization or concentration, it means that we can put together different things and make the concrete understanding of them. The classification, for example, help us to put specific objects and phenomena into the groups, and this group, they are based on specific features that are typical only for these groups. For example, it can be metal, liquids, or hard objects, soft objects. Yeah, it means that depending on the specific features, we can classify something into specific group. Inclusion and exclusion. We can include into one group and we can exclude from another group things that have common or uncommon features. Yeah, for example, if you're talking about the animals, we know that it's specific creatures that are alive, that have specific biological activity, and it can be put in this group. For example, if you're talking about the exclusion, for example, the car can be excluded from the animals because it is metal and it is not alive. And something like it. So each process have specific understanding of this process. How can we investigate the thought processes? The best and the most simple way to understand the thought processes, it is the way of interview. If we are talking about the interview, it is the type of conversation or communication. In some cases, it can be highly structured interviews, and in this case, it is very difficult to understand specific disorders of thinking, for example, resonance thinking or paralogical thinking. Yeah, if you're talking about the highly structured interview, we are talking about specific questions and that can have the specific answers. If we are talking about the disorders of thinking that cannot be investigated during the highly structured interview, we can ask the open questions, which can help the patient to speak more and to show the disorders of thinking that typically can be present, for example, in the schizophrenic patients or in the patients who have the bipolar disorder. Yeah, or in people who have organic injuries of the brain. For example, in this case, if the question is opened, the person cannot stay on the track or can speak a lot about some specific features and phenomena of the question. And the example of the highly structured interview is, for example, how old are you? Where do you live? What is the year right now? Yeah, or which season is it right now? And if you're talking about the open questions, we can ask, for example, can you tell me something about yourself or about your family? What are the plans for the future? Yeah, and in this case, the person can have the ability to speak from his head, and it will be more easy to investigate this type of disorders of thinking. Other tasks using the abstract material include the asking for explanation of the meaning of the proverbs such as a stitch in time, people who live in glass houses, and still water runs deep, and something like it. It means that if we will ask such explanations, the person can show a lot of different types of thinking. For example, the concrete thinking, inability to give abstract answers on the questions. Sometimes it can show the paralogical type of thinking when the person gives specific illogical answers on the questions. We have to remember one thing, that depending on the education, the type of living, the person can show specific manner of answering the questions. There are families in which the proverbs are very common. For example, your father, for example, can tell you that in sound body, a sound mind. Yeah, in some families, they don't tell such proverbs anytime. And in this case, people cannot understand them very well. How can we classify the disorders of thinking? First of all, it's disorders in the formation of the concepts. It's pseudo-concepts, it's condensation of concepts, and neologisms. A disturbance in the rate of thinking. It's rapidity of thoughts or galloping ideas, it's retarded thinking, it's delay or arrest of the thinking, or we have the specific term in the psychiatry, it's Sperrung, and mentism. And disturbances in the form of thinking, it's pathological, it's circumstantial thinking, it's philophythidine, non-continuous thinking, or schizophasia. Incoherent thinking, amorphous thinking, paralogical thinking, autistic thinking, symbolic thinking, verbigerations, perseverations, and affective thinking. And also we can say that there is the fourth group, it's disorders in the concept of thinking. It's obsessive, dominant, supervaluable, delusion-like, and delusion ideas. Disorders of semantic content and concept formation, it's pseudo-content, and we are talking about the specific type of formation of thought disorders. If you're talking about this paralogical thinking, we can say that sometimes the person can tell you something that is not understandable to you. For example, I can tell you that today I wear this shirt because I wear this sweater. Yeah, and seems like it's logical, but it's not very logical. For example, I can tell you that today in the morning I wanted to put my white shirt, but my jacket was dirty, and I understood that it's not okay to wear the white shirt for this sweater, and I wear the dark one. Yeah, it will look better, for example. Yeah, and it means that there is a hidden logic inside of this speech. Condensation of concepts or gluing of two concepts into one. It's a specific thing when the person can agglutinate or connect together two different specific things that are not logically connected in the real lives. For example, we can say that the condensation of concepts, it's like two opposite things can be connected together. Like when I will tell you that the time and place can be connected together, and we can say that it's time place orientation. Yeah, but it's not typical word that it's connected together. Yeah, it's specific understanding of the person who have specific mental disorders. And neologisms, it's new and unusual concepts or new unusual words that are not typically used in the general population. These words, they can be understood only by the person, and they can be understood by people who are connected and who are related to the person. All these disorders, they can be met in people who suffer from schizophrenia. Speaking about another group of disorders, it's pathology of the associative process, or pathology of form of thinking. As the base of tachyphrenia, bradyphrenia, mentism, jump of ideas, and Sperrung. What is tachyphrenia? Tachyphrenia, it's a typical disorder of thinking that is present in people who suffer, as a rule, from the bipolar affective disorder, in people who took the psychostimulants, or sometimes in people who had the increased speed of thinking that can be met, for example, in people who slept less during few days. Because we know that this less sleep can lead to the presence of the mania or hypomania. So how do we know that the person have tachyphrenia? As a rule, this person is speaking very quickly, have a lot of associations. Sometimes the person can speak so quickly that he or she is unable to verbalize all the thoughts, and in this case, our verbal ability is less developed than ability to think. And in this case, we cannot verbalize everything that we were thinking about, and the person is running further and speaking about the new thought. Yeah, and it's look like the person jumped from one thought to another. It's as a rule occur when the person didn't finish the previous thought. So these two disorders, tachyphrenia and as a highly developed tachyphrenia, jump of ideas, they can be developed, they can be present in people who suffer from the bipolar disorder, and it's typical present in the manic patients. Sometimes it can be in people who have schizoaffective disorder, and as we told before, in people who are intoxicated by the psychostimulants. The opposite thing that can be met in people who have mental disorders is bradyphrenia. In this case, we are talking about the torpid slow reduction associations amount per unit time. As a rule, these people speak very slowly. They give answers after long pauses. They cannot understand what you ask them. They cannot answer the normal correct questions. And in this case, we can say that it can be present in people who have organic injuries of the brain. It can be in people who have depressive disorders. Sometimes it can be present also in people who are in the intoxicated state. And if they're intoxicated by the somatic illnesses, sometimes by the psychoactive substances, which are in the group of depressants. Also, we have two specific disorders which can be present in people who suffer from schizophrenia. It's mentism and Sperrung. Mentism, it's the rush of ideas. It's ideas that comes, or thoughts that comes to the head of the patient without his wish, that cannot be controlled. They are stronger than all other thoughts, and they throw out all other thoughts, and the person cannot think about something else. So Mentism is specific disorder that typically present only in people who have schizophrenia. Sometimes it can be in schizo spectrum disorders, for example, schizoaffective or schizotypical disorder, but as a rule, it's specific for schizophrenia. Sperrung is block of thoughts or sudden stop of association process. In this case, we are talking about the scene when the person says that my head is empty, I don't have thoughts. I have a feeling like all my thoughts, they get away from my head and I cannot think about anything. My head is empty. And it's also the state which typically is present in people who have schizophrenia. It's one of the main things that we have to ask about in people who have schizophrenic disorders. Using the technical tools of logic and unhelpful and pedantic manner by focusing on the trivial details instead of directly understanding the main issues in dispute, it is typical for the reasoner thinking. How can we understand what does it mean? It means that the person is speaking a lot about different things, about things that are not useful for you when they are talking all the time. And then, for example, after a long period of time, you will look on your conversation and you will understand that you don't know what you are talking about. Yeah, it's reasoner thinking. Typically, it's present in people who have schizophrenia. Symbolic thinking, it's a specific type of thinking which is present in almost all people, but if we see highly developed symbolic thinking, we can say that it is typical for schizophrenic. The patient supplies various concepts with some allegorical meaning, which is absolutely unclear for other people, but for the patient himself has a certain sense. For example, the Tao is a symbol of peace. Yeah, the eye is a symbol of the thing that you can be seen by somebody or something. The patients who have schizophrenia, they have highly developed symbolic thinking. For example, they can say that I will not speak with this doctor because he wear the red color clothes. And if I see the red color, it means that I have to stop. Yeah, and in this case, the red color is a symbol of need in stop. Or, for example, if the patient comes on the street and sees a car with a number 777, it means that he believes that it is very lucky day. Yeah, but we can say that sometimes we have also the symbol for something like black cat, like different beliefs that are typical in your specific social. As I told previously, the symbolic thinking is typically present in schizophrenic patients. Autistic thinking. Autistic thinking is characterized by the highly introverted type of thinking. What does it mean? It means that the person is concentrated only in his specific thoughts, on the aims, wishes, fantasies, rather than on the real facts. For example, the patient can believe that everybody is not so good as he is because he knows how to make an engine that will work on the water. And he believes that he is the only one who understands it, and he is thinking all the time about the processes that will occur in this engine and how he will be very famous in the world because of this engine. Even if you give the facts that will show the patient that he's not correct, that he's not right regarding something, he will don't believe in these thoughts because he believes that it is true. So autistic thinking is typically present in people who suffer from schizophrenia. Incoherent thinking, it is characterized by the inability to form associations, separate perceptions, images, concepts are not connected among themselves. Speaking about this type of thinking, it is also present in schizophrenic patients. We can say that they speak things that are not connected together, that are not logical, and they can speak about different things. For example, the patient can say that today the weather is good, I eat honey, and I will write another essay for my brother because he need some napkins for his daughter and something like it. It means that the patient is telling things that are not connected and not logical, and it potentially can be a huge problem. Perseveration, it's the uncontrollable perception of a particular response, such as a word, usually caused by the brain injury or other organic disorder. Perseveration, it is when you have the same thought. For example, when you hear the song and the song is playing in your head again and again. Yeah, and it's the same can occur in people who have also schizophrenia. Detailed or pathologically circumstantial thinking. We are talking about situation where the speech contains big amount of useless small details. We were talking about the reasoner thinking. It is when the person is telling a lot of things, but the speech is about nothing. Yeah, and if you're talking about detailed thinking, it is about the smallest useless things. For example, today in the morning I woke up at 7:03. I opened my eyes and I look on my bed. My bed was, as always, without any specific feature. Then I sit on my bed and we're sitting during 3 minutes and I was thinking what I will do today. Then I found my pajama and I wear it on because every morning I wear the pajama. So it means that the person give a lot of details that is not useful in this situation, in this conversation. Verbigeration is a senseless repetition of the same word or scraps of phrases, and sometimes it can occur during the days. It is typical for people who suffer from schizophrenia. The person can say, for example, good day, good day, good day, good day. He will walk anywhere, he will sit and say the good day. Concrete thinking, it is characterized by the actual things, events, and immediate experience rather than the abstractions. Seen in young children, in those who have lost or never developed the ability to generalize, as in the cognitive mental disorder. Concrete thinking, it is the type of inability to think logically. For example, they are unable to explain the proverbs. They are unable to read between the lines, as we told, yeah? And if you will not have the logical thinking, or you will have concrete thinking, you will not understand what does it mean to read between the lines. Pathology of thinking by the content, or pathology of the judgment. It's dominant ideas, it's phantasms, obsessions, delusions, and delusion-like ideas. What is obsessive idea? It's stereotype, repeated ideas, representations, memories, rituals, which arise against the will. It means that the patient does not want this thought. It comes again and again to the brain, and the patient understands that it is not correct thoughts, that it is useless thought, that it is a thought which does not have to be present in the head, but still it occurs and it is stronger than the person. And as a rule, this thought leads to the development of the anxiety. As a rule, we can say that obsessive ideas, they can be ideas, it's representations, it's memories, it can be rituals. They arise involuntarily, they cannot be stopped, and the patients have critique to this state. Yeah, it's the main thoughts about these obsessive ideas. Every person have the obsessive idea, obsessive type of thinking. For example, sometimes we does not want to stand on the scratches of the earth. Sometimes we does not like the number 13. In some cases, we believe that it's not good to give money to somebody on the Monday, and on the Monday morning it's the worst thing that you can do, because the week starts from the Monday, and if you give money in the first day of the week, potentially you will have problems in the future with the money, and you will give money all the time. Yeah, it's something like it. So people who have obsessive ideas, typically they also have the compulsions. Compulsions, they lead to the thing that they reduce the anxiety. The example of obsessive idea is thought that you cannot throw out things from anywhere. And if you cannot throw things from any, you are enabled to live normally, because you have all your things that are in your life, somewhere in the flat, on your yard, and somewhere. For example, I have a patient, and his mother have the OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and she cannot throw things. He told that in their flat there is only ability to go in very specific way, because everywhere there are a lot of things, and she cannot throw things from her house. I had a patient that every time is washing hands because he believes that there are a lot of microorganisms on them, and he can become ill. In my daughter children garden, there is two guys, and in their family, for example, and there is a ritual that they have to wash hands because everything is dirty. And for example, people who work in the children garden say that they, for example, they cannot take anything on the street, and they are hidden their hands in the pockets. They can wear only gloves, and they are very scared to take anything from the street. It's like the pathological things. And speaking about the obsessions, as a rule, we can say that they can lead to the obsessive phobias. Obsessive phobias, it's pathological, unrealistic, intense fear of an object or situation. The phobic person may realize that the fear is irrational, but cannot dispel it. For types of phobia, there are in the specific terms. Today, I had a patient. He came to me for the consultation, and he was the patient with this specific phobic anxiety phobic disorder. He were drinking with his friend a few years ago, 7 years ago, and after this drinking alcohol, after this use of alcohol, his friend had the seizures. It's like intoxicated state that leads to the development of seizures. And his friend were hospitalized. And after that moment, he could not stay alone, because he believes that something bad can happen with him. And every time when he stays alone, he feel the fear, feel the anxiety, and feel that something will happen, and nobody will call the ambulance, nobody will help him, and he will die. So he cannot drive the car, he cannot work without any person, and every time somebody has to be near him. It is a guy who is 31 year old. So when I ask him, do you understand that you are a strong man, that you have never had any disorders, you have never called the ambulance, and nobody gave you the first help? He he told that, yes, I understand, but I cannot do anything with it. So it's like thoughts that cannot give me ability to feel normally. Overvalued or super valuable ideas. Speaking about the obsessive ideas, they typically are present in people who have obsessive compulsive disorder. It's the type of the neurotic disorders. It can be people who suffer from schizophrenia as the symptom of obsession in the schizophrenic patients. So overvalued or super valuable ideas, they develop the specific sthenic persons. They dominate in the mental life. They are superseding all other motives. They criticism to these ideas absent, and typically what can we say is that the person wants these ideas, and these ideas they were made logically and by the person. For example, some people believe that they have to do the morning exercises every day, and it is okay if this morning exercise, for example, lasts for a few minutes, but sometimes people believe that they have to do morning exercises during 1 hour, 2 hours. Or, for example, people believe that they have to pray every day. It's okay to pray every day, but if you believe that you have to pray during 2 hours, 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening, it's not okay, because all your life is going out, and you cannot live normal way. So these overvalued ideas become like pathological idea, which leads to the social problems. So speaking about these ideas, we can say that they are developing among the specific sthenic person. They are developing on the base of the real facts. They dominate in the mental life. They are superseding all other motives. The patient does not have the critic toward this idea, and maybe the partial short-term correction. It means that in some cases, we can try to correct this idea. Delusional idea. It's false conclusion arising on the pathological basis. No ability to correct or critic is absent. So, speaking about the delusional ideas, we can say that it's idea that present only in the pathological state. As a rule, we are talking about the psychotic states, or sometimes we can say that it's intoxicated states. These delusional ideas, they are very strong. They cannot be changed. Even if we tell the person the correct information about something, even if we give the proof that your idea is not correct, but still the person will continue believing this idea. We know that delusional idea, it can be the delusion that everybody is plotting against you, that other people are laughing at you, that there are cameras that are watching about you, that you have super abilities, like to know the future, to control the weather and something like it. Before the lecture, I were talking with one of my patients. She's a young lady, 17 years old lady, and when she were treating in the hospital, she was treating because of the presence of the psychotic disorder. At the time, we didn't know which type of disorder is it, because when the person have the first disorder, sometimes we have to watch some period of time after the person. But she were telling the delusional ideas that other people are laughing at her, that somebody knows her thoughts, that then she started to tell that she is a special girl, that she's extremely smart, extremely sexual, that she can feel the energy. And the last thing that she started to talk about when she were treated, it was the only one symptom, that she can feel the energy that go from other people. And she told that she feel my energy when we were talking, and she told that it's sexual energy, and she told that I want her because we have like sexual connection. I were talking with her today before the lecture, and I asked, do you feel energy that comes from me? She told yes, but it's a little smaller. And I asked what type of energy is it. She told that I'm not alone. I cannot tell you which type of energy. And I asked, is it sexual energy? She says, yes, it's sexual energy. I can feel it. So it means that it is delusional idea. We know that typical delusional ideas, they have the stages of formation. It's by the Conrad. And first of all, it's delusional mood. Delusional mood, it means that the person feels like something is going on, but still the person cannot understand what is going on. People are looking specific way, the world like changing specific way, but still I cannot understand what is going on. Delusional perception, it means that I can see that this person is behaving specific way, and I understand that this specific behavior has specific meaning, but still I don't know what does it mean. I know that this car is moving here, but you have a feeling like it's not moving somewhere. It's moving for specific reasons. Then the next stage is a delusional interpretation. When you try to interpret the specific surrounding things that are around you. For example, you understand that this car is moving near you because they are looking at you. People are specific because they are looking after you. They are like super agents. Then delusional crystallization, when you understand what is going on in the world. So you understood that it's not specific way because you are a super person and everybody wants to take your power. And super agents are looking about you. These cars are moving because they want to know what you are doing all the time. These people around you, it's not just the people, it's super agents. And every person who is around you, it's specific person, not just a person. Yeah, it means that people have the big, great understanding of these delusional ideas. Speaking about the types of delusions, we can say that there are catatonic, holotonic, and the primary, secondary, they induce the catastenic and residual delusion. Catatonic delusions, it's delusions that are made and they which are seen in the specific situations. For example, when you go to study to the foreign country, like you came to Ukraine, and when you're in the supermarket, you have a feeling like that everybody is talking about you. Yeah, it's like catatonic. Holotonic, they are caused by the specific mood disorders. For example, manic patients, people who have classical mania, they have delusions of grandiosity. They believe that they have superpowers, they are very smart, very sexual, extremely rich. Today in the morning, I saw one patient, he's my patient, and he told he were in the close psychiatric department, but he wanted to go home. He told me that, doctor, please, I have to go home because I need to make money. Now the carrots are growing up and I have to take them and to sell them, and I will have a lot of money. I know a lot of rich people, I know a lot of famous people, and you can believe me, if you will not let me go home, I will make you huge problems. So you have to do it. It's typical for people who have manic disorders. Depressive patients, they have delusions that typically decrease their power, their abilities, their personality. For example, I have to burn in the fire because everything that I did in my previous life, it's were the awful sins, and people are suffering from my behavior. And something like it. So it's delusions that make the person feel worse. Induced delusions, it's delusions that occur in the people who are connected with the person who have the psychotic disorder. Very often we can see that the relatives start to believe in the delusions that are present in their children, husbands, friends, couples. If you ask the example, I will tell you that typically when the psychotic disorder starts in the child, the mother believes all these thoughts. For example, when the child says that, Mama, I'm scared to go out because I can see that near our house there are cars that are watching after me. I know that people on the streets, they are talking about me beside my back. And in this case, typically the relatives start believing the things which are in the delusional thoughts of the person. When we will take out the person who have the delusion, the person who have the induced delusion, they will stop believing in these pathological thoughts. Catastenic or interoceptor delusion. They occur in the people who have different specific somatic symptoms. For example, if the person have feeling of movements of something in their lower part of the body, they can believe that there is something inside them. For example, worms which are moving, and they believe that they have worms, and it is caused by the activation of the interoreceptors. And residual delusions, it's delusions that still present in the person who were treated by the antipsychotics, and they are not developed so much as previously. Speaking about the types of delusions, we can divide them depending on the structure of the delusion. The delusions can be divided into the primary and the secondary delusions. Primary delusion, it's delusion that is very logical, that every fact inside this delusion is connected together. Secondary delusion is a delusion in which the facts occur based on the primary disorder. For example, if the person have the depressed mood, enabled to perform routine activities, if the person is enabled to live normal life, the person can believe that I have a lot of things, I cannot give ability to my children to live normally, I have to die because I don't have to live. Primary delusions, they the second name is systematized or systematic. Every feature inside of the delusion is connected. When I came today on the street, I understood that everything is not simple, since I believed that, and I understood that everything have its specific relation toward me. The people were laughing, and they were laughing at me. I saw the camera on the street, and I knew that this camera was put there to record my behavior. When I were moving, all the cars on the street, they were driving near me, and I saw that there were specific numbers on these cars. It were 7, 8, and 4. So when I saw the 4, 7, and 8 in the number of the car, I understood that this is the car with super agents. So I knew that everything is made for me because I'm superhero. They knew it. It means that every thing inside of the delusion is connected and logical. Speaking about the delusional ideas, we know that they form 3 different types of syndromes. It's paranoid, paranoial, or paranoid, and paraphrenic. Paranoid syndrome is systematized interpretation and construction of stage-by-stage logic. It means that everything is very logically connected. The paranoid syndrome, it's secondary, and they are not systematized. So it means that it's not logical. I heard the voice of the God, which told me that I am superhero and I have to tell it to every person, and I have to change the world. So in this case, the voice told the person something, and the person believed in these super abilities. Induced delusions, we were talking about them. It's typically present in people who are connected with the persons who have mental disorders. There are delusions which typically present in people who have depressive disorder, or it's delusions of depressive character. It's delusions of guilt, self-accusation, hypochondria. It means that the person can believe that he or she have the incurable disease. Nihilistic delusions, when the person believes that the internal organs are decayed. Similar process in the pure world. Delusions of the manic character, it's another type of delusions. In this case, people believe that they are rich, they are hybrid of origin, they are powerful, and they are very smart, they know how to earn a lot of money and something like it. It's typically present in people who have the manic disorder. And the third type of delusions is delusions of persecution character. It's delusions of poisoning, damage, influence, relations, prejudice, harassment, and jealousy. People can believe that everything that is occurring in the world is not simple occurrence. It's specific. It is specifically related to the person which have these delusions. People can believe that people put poison into the food and they want the death of the patient, or people have specific power to influence the patient, for example, to control the thoughts, to control the behavior, and something like it. Delusions typically present in people who have the psychotic disorders. What are psychotic disorders? As a rule, we are talking about the schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. Sometimes it can be schizoaffective disorders. It can be sometimes in people who have the organic injuries of the brain. If we are talking about the typical patients who have schizophrenia, we are talking about the presence of the symptom of Kandinsky-Clérambault. It is characterized by the presence of three main symptoms. It's mentism, it's pseudo-hallucinations, and automatism, psychic automatisms. What is mentism? We were talking about it. It's specific flow of thoughts that cannot be controlled by the patients. Pseudo-hallucinations, it's specific hallucinations. You were talking about them on the first lecture, which are present in this person, and typically there are three main features of the pseudo-hallucinations. It's interoception. It means that they are located as a rule inside of the body. Also, they make the feeling that they are not real, and feeling that they are made by somebody, some specific power, force, or something like it. So it means if the person has these three main features, it is pseudo-hallucinations. And sensoidomotor automatism is the sense of alienation of own thoughts, movements, and feelings. For example, the person can believe that somebody made him to feel the headache or heartache, or to move the body parts. I had a patient, he were a guy who lived in the village, and he believed that near his house he has a witch which all the time give him specific negative feelings inside of the body. For example, he told that when I have a headache, I know that she is doing it for me. When I have thoughts about some bad scenes, for example, when I want to kill somebody, it's thoughts that are made by this person. And it happened that way, that sometimes even he wanted to beat this neighbor woman, because he believes that she is a witch which do it for him. So Kandinsky-Clérambault syndrome typically is present in schizophrenic patients, but sometimes it can be in the infectious diseases, in the vascular injuries of the brain, alcoholic psychosis, traumatic hypoxic brain injury. Yeah, in this slide, you can see the specific hat, which is made by the person who wanted to protect his thoughts or inside of the Kandinsky-Clermont syndrome. Another type of delusions, it's Cotard syndrome. The patients, they develop delusions of the damage, the death, destruction of the world, self condemnation of the for the perpetration of the grave crimes. Typical are statements that their intestines have rotten, they have no heart. The patients may believe that they died a long time ago and now been decomposed, that they don't have blood in their vessels, like that they're not alive once. The typical complaints of the patients that have the Cotard syndrome. Yeah, you can see on this picture. So Cotard syndrome have the nihilistic, depressive, hypochondriac delusions that combine with the enormity of the ideas. They have the thought disorders and the emotional disorders. Thought disorders, it's delusions, immensity, hypochondriac, death, nihilistic, charges, and self-blame. And the emotional disorders, as a rule, we are talking about the decreased mood or depression, the anxiety, and the melancholy with mental anesthesia and with the agitation and with the fear. The figure of the Cotard syndrome, the patient with the delirium. Yeah, it's specific pictures. It's also the picture of the world with the Cotard delusion. The Frigolis syndrome. The Frigolis syndrome, it's pathological belief that delusional belief that one or more familiar person, usually persecutors, follow the patient, repeatedly change their appearance. It's a feeling like other people, they're changing their appearance, the masks, and they have the specific wish to look after the patient, to harm the patient, to kill the patient, and something like it. Cabra syndrome, named by the Capgras, manifests itself by a disturbance in the recognized people. This Capgras syndrome have two specific types. The syndrome of the positive double or twin, when the patient regards unfamiliar people as his friends, and the syndrome of the negative double or negative twin, when the patient does not recognize his relatives, considers them as dummies, twins, doubles of his relations. It's a syndrome which typically you can meet in people who suffer from schizophrenia. They, for example, sometimes can say, you can come with the students to the patient and the patient can say that, oh, I know you. We meet you previously somewhere. I know you that you are my classmate. Yeah, you are Michael, or you are Tom, or you are Mary. Even if the patient have never seen these people. Sometimes when the relatives come to the patient, he says that it's not my mama, I don't know this woman, my mama looked like another. So it means that the syndrome of the positive and negative double. Speaking about the emotions, we can say that they are response in the form of subjectively tinctured feelings of the individual, which reflect the significance of an acting stimulus or a result of its own act for him. It means that they reflect specific relation toward internal external irritants. What are the main functions of the emotions? It's the reflective function. Reflective function help us to understand our attitudes towards something. The target function, for example, if we see very beautiful boy or girl, we want this boy or girl, and it's like help us to change the target. Information function, we due to the emotions, we understand Is this useful? Is this interesting? Is this boring? Enabling function. If we are scared about something, for example, to walk on the roof, yeah, we will not do it. So this fear will enable our pathological behavior. Regulatory function, when we regulate our behavior due to the emotions, and reinforces the function. Switching function, we can switch from less interesting thing to the more interesting. For example, you started to watch the movie and you feel like it's very boring, it's not interesting, and then you will switch to another movie which will be more interesting. Or you have a boyfriend, but you see that your boyfriend is not so good as your group mate, which is much better, and you change your attention to another person. Adaptive function, they help us to adapt to the situations. And communicative function, due to the emotions, we have ability to understand what the person wants to show us and what does the person feel this moment. And the protective function, they also help us to understand if somebody is aggressive, it's better not to touch this person. If somebody is very lovely and kind, better to communicate with this person. Speaking about the development of the emotions, we can say that they have specific stages. And the first stage is typical for the newborn, and that the person in this period, they have the predominance in the instincts and especially self-preservation instinct. So as a rule, in this period, people enjoy being in the safe place or in the hot place. When they feel comfortable, they will not cry. When they will eat, they will not cry. If they will be hungry, they will cry. If they will feel that they urinate, for example, in their trousers and they are wet and it's cold, they will cry. The second stage, the stage of the organic feeling, processing information from the external and external and the interoceptor. The emergence of unstable figurative representation of the reality to the experience of the meeting a child, dissatisfaction, pleasant, unpleasant, and etc. Yeah, I like candies, but I don't like onion, for example. Yeah, I like when somebody hugs me, but I don't like when somebody beats me. Yeah, it means that people understand in this period what is pleasant and what is not pleasant. Stage 3, it's from 3-4 years to 12-14 years, a stage of epicritic emotions and organic needs, the coupling of developing emotions with organic needs. Yeah, people understand what do they want, how do they want, and they want this specific way, but not the way which people give them. The stage number 4, it's from 10-12 years to 22 years old, a stage of mental self-expression. It's cortical emotions. On this stage, we want to express ourselves this or that way. For example, we want to wear the bright trousers because we want that everybody look at us, or we want to prepare for the classes the best way because we want the teacher to see how smart are we or our group mates and understand how good are we. Or for example, I want to comb my hair specific way to show the girls how cute guy I am. Speaking about the components of emotional functioning, we can say that it's intensity, the basic background, and we can classify all the emotions into 2 main groups. They are sthenic and asthenic. Sthenic emotions, they increase the functioning of the organism, and asthenic, they reduce the vital functions of the body. Speaking about the sthenic emotions, we can say that they are typically the positive emotions. When somebody gives something good for us, we feel extremely good. Yeah, we can behave much better than before. If something bad happened, in this case, our body reduces its activity and we are not so able to perform our activity as before it. So in this case, we are talking about asthenic emotions. Speaking about the emotional classification of the emotions, we can say that there is emotional state or mood, emotional relating, it's feelings, and emotional reactions, it's affect. Mood, it's a long-term emotion that typically is present in the person. Emotional relating, it's feelings, it's our attitude towards something or somebody. And emotional reactions, it's our reaction, it's our ability to understand what do we feel regarding something at this moment of time. Speaking about the affect, we can say that it is a special emotional state which is very strong, and as a rule it is very short term, and as a rule it leads to the changing in the work of the internal organs and internal glands. As a rule, it occurs very quickly, like blow up, it's fear, anger, rage, despair, and so forth. As a rule, they change the consciousness, they disturb the volition control of the action. So the patient cannot control the behavior very clearly. There are two types of the affects. It's physiological affect and pathological affect. As a physiological affect, it's a rising state in the intense emotion that dominates in the mind of the man, reduces his control over his actions, and characterized by the narrowing consciousness specific inhibition of the intellectual activity. It means that when the physiological effect occurs, the person is not so able to control the behavior and to understand what will be if you will behave this or that way. Pathological effect is characterized by the fully dimming of the consciousness and uncontrollable impulsive action, more aggressive and destructive nature. Speaking about the pathological effect, we can say that pathological effect is characterized by two main big features. First of all, the consciousness is disordered, and the second one, typically the person have memory disorders after this pathological effect. Sometimes there is one more feature, it's sleep after this specific period of time when you had the pathological effect. So, quantitative disorders of emotions. It's hyperthymia and hypothymia. Hyperthymia is pathological increase of the emotions. It can be the mania, it can be the aphoria, and it can be the moria. Mania, it's persistent, painful mood increasing. Aphoria, it's persistent, painful mood enhancement, plus the motor retardation. It's state when people feel very good. And moria, it's persistent, painful mood enhancement, plus motor excitation, plus silliness, stupid, foolish behavior. Hypothymia, or we can say that it is painful emotional reduction, it can be the depression also. Yeah, it's persistent, painful, depressed, or decreased mood. Also, in the hypothymic disorders, we can say that there is apathy, lack of higher emotions, emotional stupidity, emotional impoverishment, or the absence of higher and the lower emotions. When people are unable to feel normal state of emotions. For example, today I saw our student, he's a third-year student, not foreign, but Ukrainian guy. And his main complaint is inability to feel emotions. He says that I don't feel emotions at all, and it's very difficult for me because I don't know what do I have to feel regarding this or that thing. And it is emotional stupidity. Emotional monotony, it's the weakening of the expression of the emotional reactions. Emotional coldness, indifference to loved ones. In emotional brutalization, loss of thin differentiated emotions. As a rule, these people, they lose the tact, the empathy, and the other types of behavior. Disorders of the emotions, they can be qualitative, except the quantitative. Qualitative, they are parathemias. In these parathemias, we have the ambivalence, the dysphoria, dysthymia, pathological anxiety, and the inadequacy of the emotions. What is ambivalence? We are talking about the ambivalence when the person have two opposite type of the emotions regarding somebody or something. The ambivalence can be understood by the average person like the state when you are in love. Potentially, most of you had the lovely person, or maybe have the lovely person, and when the lovely person do something bad, you feel two opposite emotions. From one side, you want to kill your lovely one, and from the other side, you feel that you love your couple very much. And speaking about the people who have the ambivalence, schizophrenic patients typically have the ambivalence. They have two opposite feelings regarding something. For example, I like black tea and I hate it. I want to go for a walk, but I want to sleep. It means that sometimes this ambivalence can change to the ambitendance, two opposite types of behavior that can be realized in the person's life. The ambivalence is a state. For example, one of my patients, he was staying on the kitchen with a cup of tea, and he was standing during 2 hours because from one side he wanted to put this cup of tea on the table, from the other side he wanted to put it in the on the window, and he was standing during 2 hours and he could not understood what is better to put on the table or on the window, and it was a huge problem. The inadequacy of the emotions is when the person have the inadequate affect, pathological, paradoxal emotions, emotional response does not match the occasion, and it cost of the patient loves talking about the death or something like it. Dysthymia, a chronic depression mood, which the same cognitive and the physical problems like depression, but less heavy and longer. Dysthymia typically it's state when the person have like little decreased emotions, but it's chronically decreased. Dysphoria, sad, evil spirits with the hypersensitivity to the external stimuli, with the fierce, explosive, prone to violence. And the pathological anxiety, the emotional, painful, long-term experience of the inner discomfort of the uncertain content. Speaking about the dysphoria, it's when the person feels extremely negative, irritable emotions without any specific reasons. And these people, they can destroy, they can beat people, they can do a lot of negative things. Pathology of emotional sphere, they can be realized in three main syndromes. It's depressive, manic, and dysphoric. There are three main symptoms that are typically present in the depressive syndrome, and three main symptoms which are opposite to the symptoms that are present in the depression. They are typical for the manic syndrome. So you have to remember these three main symptoms. First of all, it's decreased mood, because depressive syndrome, it's the syndrome of emotional state. The second one, it's decreased speed of thinking or bradyphrenia. And the third one is decreased speed of movements. Yes, so decreased emotions, you can understand what is it? Decreased speed of thinking, when the person thinks slower. We were talking about it on the beginning of the lecture. And decreased speed of movement when the person is retarded. Also, if you're talking about depressive states or depressive syndrome, they can have other specific symptoms. For example, and there are specific complex sympathetic tonic symptoms like mydriasis, tachycardia, and constipation, which are characterized by the Protopopov's triad. And the second syndrome, manic syndrome, as we told before, it have three opposite symptoms that are met in the manic syndrome. It's increased mood, increased speed of thinking or tachyphrenia, and increased speed of movements. So the patient extremely happy, moves a lot, and there are a lot of thoughts which moves in the head very quickly. Manic and depressive syndromes, typically they are present in people who have bipolar disorder. So, dear colleagues, I want to thank you for the lecture.